Thursday, March 13th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, still without internet, we talk a little bit about saving your game.
Let's do this. Gummy bears.
Yeah, gummy bears. Luckily, I took the bag away from Scott so you won't hear crackle, crackle, crackle throughout the show tonight.
Unless I get up and get them from the other side of the room.
I'm factoring in your laziness.
Damn you.
Plus the fact that we're not taking a break because we still don't have the internet, so we're not really going to bother with things of the day. You know what? We'll still do things of the day, but it'll be the best thing we saw in the last 24 hours.
Oh, crap.
Internet or no.
We
got time.
All right.
You can think of something.
I'm thinking.
But before we get to that, in the news, since we can only talk about news that did not come to us from any sort of electronic medium, since we don't have access to any non-electronic mediums, I'm not going to go get a newspaper.
There's no way I'm ever going to pay for a newspaper. While Google News exists, a newspaper will not scot by.
I could have gotten the free newspaper in New York City.
I didn't see any people giving out free newspaper. Oh, you mean like the AM New York or the Metro?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because sometimes they do give away like the Post or the Times for free when some advertiser puts in like a big advertising section and that pays for the paper so no one needs to pay for it.
Well, there's one pizza place I eat at often, and they always have the New York Post just sitting there, so I often read it if I'm not reading a novel.
It's basically a tabloid, though.
Yeah, it is. I usually read the comics to remind myself how bad newspaper comics are. So, along those lines, since this is the only thing I could observe about today that was at all interesting, that was the shortest winter ever.
I don't know.
Let's see, it was warm, as in shorts and a t-shirt, until early mid-February, and it's now early mid-March, and it's shorts and t-shirt weather again.
It wasn't shorts and t-shirts.
Yeah, it was.
In mid-February.
Yeah, it was, because remember, on February 9th was the last day I went running in shorts and a t-shirt at night, and it was like 68 degrees.
You hadn't been going in shorts and a t-shirt since, August.
I had been. The only time I didn't is when I had to go to work, and they won't let me wear that stuff there.
It was cold and gray. It just wasn't wintry, snowy, stormy until like January and February.
Well, we had a cold snap or two, but otherwise it was mostly... Remember, the day after New Year's, all of us went on a long shorts and t-shirt hike.
Yeah, it was still warm then. It was crazy.
And now it's warm again. I just went out running in shorts and a t-shirt. It's going to be almost 70 degrees tomorrow. We got a rainstorm coming, maybe a thunderstorm.
I guess regardless of the actual weather, they think the winter doldrums did last the usual amount of time.
No, maybe just where you go, or where you were going then, because in Yonkers it was sunny almost every day.
Well, now the feeling of winter is over has definitely overcome my senses.
Well, the big difference today as opposed to any other day was today when I went outside to run, it didn't smell like winter anymore. I could smell things.
Yeah, I was able to open my sunroof, which I forgot I even had.
Yep.
Well, moonroof, I guess, technically. And also, opened the windows, and I was like,
Yep, I left my windows to my room open all day, and my room smells nice. I'm very happy with this.
I'm opening the windows to my room, turning the fan on.
Won't be long till we'll put the air conditioners in, and then Al Gore's global warming will make it too hot, and the power grid will go out. There'll be mass chaos. New York will flood. We'll all die.
Or we'll just stay cool in our rooms with our computers.
And our air conditioning.
That will hopefully have internet access tomorrow.
It's also, I realized now, because I'm looking at computers, that I had said I'm going to get a computer by summer of this year. And summer's coming up. So.
Oh, I thought it was in summer you were going to get one, not by summer.
Well, here's the thing.
Are you pushing it up? Oh my God, Rim the Luddite is going to buy a computer sooner than he thought he was.
Well, no, here's the thing. Originally, my plan was I'm going to have a computer that will be delivered to my house 1 week before Team Fortress 2 is released. That was my original plan. And Team Fortress 2 got pushed back a couple times.
It's pushed back quite a bit.
Yeah, and when I made that original plan, I expected to be making a new computer in May, give or take. And now, if Team Fortress 2 is going to come out, late fall, I don't know if I want to wait that long. Partly because once it gets warm, this computer made it through the winter mostly due to the fact that it's not hot.
That's right. In the summer, Rim's computer it has been known to overheat quite a bit.
Well, the thing is, way back in the day, I overclocked this bastard a lot. So as a result, I had the hardware temperature alarm to warn me if I was pushing it a little too hard. So, and the thing is, once it goes off, you cannot stop it without rebooting the computer, which would force me to reboot it, because otherwise I wouldn't. And in fact, there were many times I'd be playing Counter-Strike in Colony with the super overclocked motherboard going, and it would start overheating, and I'd keep playing Counter-Strike despite the noise because the game was more important than the CPU.
You should have unplugged the PC speaker.
I thought about that, but I didn't have enough time because I only had 6 seconds between rounds and I wasn't dying.
Well, like before you start a game of Counter-Strike, unplug it. Then when you're done playing, plug it back in.
No, because if I put that much forethought into circumventing my own protection mechanisms...
It's Chernobyl, man. That's what that is.
But the worst thing is, as the computer's gotten older, it started going off more and more because the fans are all frail, and I'm not going to buy new fans for this busted old computer.
That would be silly.
And also the video card was getting older and older and started overheating more and more, and eventually got to the point where I'd be asleep in the middle of the night in the summer, and it'd be like 75 degrees out. And I'd hear Scott laughing in the other room as I wake up. Fuck God, son of a...
That's what you get for being a Luddite and, being so averse to spending even $1 on technology. Like,
well, I solved that problem.
You'll spend all kinds of money on other crap you don't need, but if it's a computer or something, you will hold out until the last possible minute.
It's not just a computer. My car.
You'll hold out past the last possible minute. Like, the time has passed where you should have bought one, and that was 2 years ago, and you still didn't buy one.
But think of this. Think of this. This computer has lasted me how long?
I would argue that it hasn't actually lasted.
It's doing the show just fine.
Yeah, okay. It's more like a zombie. It's not. It was dead, and now it's sort of
undead. And here's the thing.
undead.
My computer can still play Counter-Strike with maximum FPS.
I don't think so. It's got a TNT2 in it.
Oh, yeah, the TNT2. That's right. The video card died.
Yeah, that's right.
But I could buy a $15 AGP card, and then it would be back to playing Counter-Strike at 100 FPS.
Yeah, that's all you.
But you see, with that dee-doo problem, I solved that because it started getting bad now that I moved to this new house, and I don't leave the AC on when I'm not home. I just open the windows. So I set the AC so it'll turn on in my room maybe an hour before I get home from work, just to save electricity. There's no reason to cool the room when I'm not in here. And I'd always come home to the computer going, dee-doo. So I went to the BIOS, and I just told it to go off like 4 or 5 degrees centigrade higher, and it stopped going off.
Good job.
Kind of like when the case fan started making all this noise. I fixed that by unplugging it.
Also good job.
Or when the video card fan started making all that noise. I just pulled it off of the video card.
All right, this is enough about Rim's dead computer.
It's not dead yet. It's doing the show.
Yeah.
It's working.
You keep telling yourself that.
People are listening to the show.
So... what were we doing the show on?
Well,
I don't know.
Don't you have some news?
No
news?
There's no internet.
All right, well then I guess...
heard from someone that some guy at the Game Developers Conference said the Wii sucked, and then he apologized.
Scott, I read that before we lost our internet.
I didn't.
Or at least I read it. Maybe I read it Friday morning. I don't know. I read it on the internet.
I don't know. I don't have any details. I don't know the guy's name. I think he works for Will Wright at EA on the Spore game.
Yep, he basically said that developing software for the Wii sucks because the Wii is weak.
Yeah. He's right, but at the same time, the Wii doesn't suck.
No. In fact,
he sucks. The end of story.
The Wii is still far and away, in my opinion, the second best console out currently. Number one being the DS.
Yeah, it's just because the Wii, it's got everything it needs, but the games aren't there yet.
Don't think I'm a fanboy, because the Xbox 360 is right there at number 3 as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think the difference between the Xbox 360 and the Wii is that the Wii has the higher potential. The Xbox 360 had a great potential, not as high as the Wii, but the Xbox 360 has already pretty much completely fulfilled its potential.
Well, here's the thing that the Xbox seems to do that this isn't a big deal to us. I think this is why we're not excited about the Xbox, and a lot of older PC gamers aren't excited about the Xbox, but younger generations and people who didn't play a lot of FPSs back in the day are super excited. The Xbox is doing now, for modern gamers, what PC gaming with FPSs did back in the day with a lot more technological fiddling. I mean, we had TeamSpeak and, headsets, and we talked to our friends while we were deathmatching online with everything that they have now on the Xbox back in the day. So when we see a console doing this, we think, why would I use that when I can do the same thing slightly better, if not massively better, on a PC?
Well, I think what it is that before the Xbox existed, those things were done on the PC. And
Yep.
while they are still done on the PC, the Xbox has sort of killed PC gaming for the most part.
My point is just that to someone who never played Quake 2 with a TeamSpeak server, or Counter-Strike at its peak, or Tribes 2 when it was, and probably still is, the best game ever made. At least
the
in
best
terms
game
of
ever made.
It's the best online FPS ever made, in my opinion.
Maybe.
I can't think of much better. I mean, Half-Life, single-player game. That's different.
Mm.
Yeah, but anyway, we'll argue about that on some other night. Maybe when we have access to the internet to look at a list of every FPS ever. But to someone who's never done all that, because those things are really old. Those things came out a long time ago. If you get an Xbox and you've never played FPSs before and someone says you can play these shooting games online with your friends and talk to them at the same time.
Oh, God, that's the best thing ever.
Yeah, co-op. I think that's really where the Xbox seems to shine, is all these co-op games.
Yeah, there's definitely a lack of co-op games on the PC and on the Wii and pretty much everywhere except the Xbox 360.
Granted, I once played with my friend Ken. We played Doom 2 all the way through on Ultraviolence on co-op.
When we finally get new computers, I definitely want to try to play the Serious Sam with the co-op because that's just run around and shoot stuff. Woo!
We should play Doom 2 all the way through, just for nostalgia's sake.
All right, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, anyway, without further ado... Things of the day. Now, since we don't have internet access, I suppose things of the day now have to be the best thing we've seen in the last 24 hours, regardless of where it came from.
Okay, have you seen anything?
Well, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
I work in the city, so you'd think I would see something exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when you watched those guys take down that purse snatcher.
Yeah, that was like years ago, though. So
that was when you were working in the city.
Yeah,
the last time.
I was walking to the subway on my way out of the office, and a guy came up to me, and he said, like, I thought he was gonna ask for directions. He had like an index card, and like he was just like, "Hey, what's up?" And then he showed me the index card, and he was like, "Just $1." And the index card had like a whole sob story on it, and I was like, "You're not even bothering to tell me your fake sob story?" And the sob story that seems to be working, that seems to be going around, that's super common now, is...
My truck ran out of gas?
No. It's like I have 2 children, my spouse is dead or lost or ran away or something.
Kidnapped by the...
Yeah, I need money to take care of my kids, I don't have a job, help me, right? And my question to these people, I don't know if anyone... obviously, a lot of these people are just lying. And what's kind of weird about this particular guy is he didn't look like a homeless bum, he looked like a normal guy. Obviously, he had some sort of foreign accent, but he looked like a normal guy. He didn't look like a dirty homeless guy. He wasn't carrying a bunch of crap. He just had a sob story on an index card, and he asked for money. And I was like, what the hell? And I just walked away. But all these people, they have this sob story about having kids, right? And my question is, obviously they're lying, but if they're not lying, where are your kids? Why are they not with you? Where did you leave them? I should give money to someone who, if you're really a widow with 2 kids and no money, and your kids aren't with you right now, where did you leave them? What? You shouldn't be someone who should give money to if you're not watching the kids that you supposedly care about so much. Wow.
Well, I got to say, the scam that I've run into, and this was funny, way back, like not a year ago, a few months ago, actually, I was out by the laundromat, and I was just standing around waiting. And this guy walks up to me, and he looks kind of scuzzy, but not too scuzzy. And he gives me this long sob story about he was driving a tow truck to pick up a car out here, and something happened, he couldn't find it, and then his gas tank busted, and he fixed it, but now he's out of gas. Can he have a couple bucks to get enough diesel to move his truck before the police have him towed, because he's on a street, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, man, all I got is quarters for the laundromat. To which he says, quarters are fine.
Here's the thing.
That's not the story. I let him. I blew him off. I did my laundry, went home. Not too long ago, I was picking Emily up at the train station, and I'm going back to my house, and the exact same dude comes up to me and tells me the exact same story. Obviously, doesn't recognize me because I'm not dressed all dishavi like I was last time.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells me the exact same story, like word for word. And I just stared at him dumbfounded and just said, I was polite, no, I can't help you. And I kept going.
Here's the thing. If a hobo came up to me, if a homeless guy came up to me and he said, hey, man, can I have $1 to buy some alcohol? I'd say, here you go.
I had a guy do that to me once.
That guy's awesome.
I did give him some money.
Yeah.
Remember when we were in Rochester one day, we were all wandering around downtown Rochester late at night, just randomly, and we ran into that beggar and we all gave him a bunch of money? Remember that?
Well, he wasn't really a beggar. He was like a guy, and we didn't know where we were going or anything, and he kind of helped us out. He told us where stuff was, and he helped us not be lost.
Yep, and then we all gave him a bunch of money because he obviously was homeless.
I don't know. He might not have been homeless.
I'm pretty sure
he might have just been poor.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, as we were leaving, someone made the comment of, he's just going to buy liquor. And there was a debate over, no, he's probably going to buy food. No, he's going to buy liquor. Maybe, blah, blah, blah. About an hour later, as we're walking back to get our car in a big group, we see him and his other scuzzy-looking friend, and they've got the biggest bottle of the cheapest liquor I've ever seen. And he's like, man, thanks for the money.
Yep. And we talked to him for like a few minutes, and he tried. He was willing to share his alcohol, though. So
yeah.
And he was so drunk.
I gotta say, though, that there is that little bit of civility. I mean, the fact that the guy recognized us and knew that we had done him a good turn and offered us the fruits of our good turn back. That's a very nice thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to be a loser who walks around the street asking for money to get drunk and wash away your sorrows and do that until you die someday in the distant future, at least have the decency to say that's what you're doing, and maybe I'll help you out. If you come up to me with this lie, I'll just be like, wow, you're a sad individual. I'm going to not help you out. That way maybe you'll die sooner and end your misery more quickly.
But anyway, my thing of the day, this was the other night, actually. I was also at the train station to pick Emily up. And as I'm talking to her on the phone, just because, hey, I'm over here. Oh, okay, I see you. This woman walks up to me, and she starts talking to me. And I'm thinking, first of all, my bum sense goes off. Because whenever someone talks to me at a train station, it's almost always a bum or a Jesus freak trying to convince me of something.
I haven't run into any Jesus freaks at the train station.
When I lived in the mountains up in Pokeway, every time I was at the train station in the morning to head into the city for something, crazy old women, always different crazy old women, would come up rambling about Jesus and give me pamphlets. One time I told one of them I was an atheist, and she totally freaked out. But that's a story for another time.
We should get some pamphlets and go up to people with crazy ramblings.
Have you considered Cthulhu?
I was just going to be like, if you considered atheism, but Cthulhu is 10,000 times better than that.
Especially if we do it with a straight face.
Have you considered, we'd be all clean cut with the snappy shirts.
Dress up
but
like
where
Mormons.
The alligator goes would be like a Cthulhu head with some tentacles.
No, obviously the yellow sign.
That too.
Anyway, so then my bum sense goes off, but I look, and no, this woman is actually well dressed. And she's obviously trying to ask me something in somewhat halting English. The long story short is that she didn't speak much English, but she spoke French. And
Canadian French or France French?
I think North African French.
Ah, okay.
Because she had an accent that I couldn't quite place at all. And I've heard Canadian French, well, Quebecois French. I've heard French, different varieties. And this was very different from all that. But she spoke enough English, and I know enough halting French that I was able to help her out, I think. Basically, she fell asleep and got off at the wrong stop and had to go back. So I was trying to show her where the taxis were and show her how to get back on the train to go back into where she was trying to get and all that. And that was very interesting, I thought.
Yeah?
That's my best thing of the day. That's all I can come up with without the internet.
Yeah, the train that I take home goes from Grand Central to Beacon without stopping. And there's a lot of places in between Grand Central and Beacon.
Yeah.
And people get on that train who don't belong on that train, and they end up basically like they would have been home at 8 p.m. Instead, they're home at midnight.
Yep. Cool. The thing is, almost every train coming out of New York City going north stops in Harlem, 125th Street. It's like the alternate station in New York City. Mm-hmm. There's a few trains that don't stop there. And if you get on that train expecting it to stop there, you're so boned.
Super boned. But I think the 6 train goes there also.
And the 4. Well, the 4 goes there, I know.
Yeah.
Pretty sure the 6 does too, because I
think the 4, 5, 6 goes there.
The 5 doesn't go that far.
No?
No.
Oh, okay.
Only north of there, only the 4 goes. I know that.
Uh-huh.
Well, along the way I go. Actually, no, the 5 might go. I don't know.
No, I know that the 6 goes all the way up into the Bronx because I'm on it and I can see where it goes.
Yep. The 4 does too, because that goes all by where I work, like Mosholu and Woodlawn and all those places. If the 5 goes up there, it goes way off to the right where I never go.
I don't know enough about it. I got to look at a map.
It's so rare that I take subways outside of Manhattan.
It's true.
All right, anyway, tonight, since we don't have the internet, we don't want to try to review anything, since we can't pull up relevant information like who made the game,
what
when
year
it was
is
made,
it from, what system was it for,
what's it called, how do I play it?
What's this video game thing?
So, I was thinking about one thing that has evolved very much throughout the years, and also something that has affected me a great deal over the course of my video gaming days, and that is saving your progress.
You know, that actually, I think it's a good topic because not having save games is sort of like not having internet, in a way.
Well, it's this such a different paradigm of gaming. It's almost like a different era of gaming before save games.
Well, let's start with the beginning of time when there were no saving at all. It was just you played the game to play the game.
Yeah. We'll skip arcade and go right to like the early NES days, like Mario 1.
Well, I don't know, because the arcade, they had the high score saving, which was something else.
Yeah, I don't think that's a different thing to talk about.
Really? I don't know. I think it's sort of like, you know, your high score is there forever. It's
Until
sort of
they
like
unplug
a way
the machine.
It's true.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like a save game in a way, because it's like you know and you can record your previous history or progress.
True, but at the same time, it's not like you can pick up where you left off, and it's not like you can save the state of the game. All you're basically saving is a record that you did at that time play that game with that level of ability.
That's true, but actually, there was a gauntlet game in the arcade, like one of the later.
Yeah, I remember that crap.
And you could save your game.
It was so lame.
And now
useless.
they've got arcade games that print out cards.
Well, Initial D,
Yep.
et al. Yeah.
There are other ones like that too.
Yeah.
And the Neo Geo, you could, because the Neo Geo was also a home system, you could bring your Neo Geo memory cards, plug them into the arcade, and also plug them in at home, and it would be the same game.
So then, yeah, the early days, there were just games that you played for the sake of the high score and or beating them, and you could save your high score. And then there was kind of the move, especially with home systems, toward games that had a beginning and an end, a game that you could beat, and that beating the game was the goal, usually more so than getting X number of points.
Yeah, I mean, there was Adventure for the Atari, but you couldn't save that game, and it was meant to pretty much be played all at once.
Or Mario 1. You basically, if you want to beat Mario 1, you had to sit down and play the whole thing through. If you make a mistake, that's the end of you. If your mom calls you to dinner, not beating Mario 1 tonight, didn't get enough lives in level 7, you're boned in level 8.
Well, actually, weren't the super early PC games, like some of the text adventures and stuff, didn't those save?
Probably.
Or like BBS games, I assume those saved in some way.
I'm thinking for the most part, I'd narrow it down to consoles, at least for this part.
Yeah.
Because it's too broad of a topic.
Mostly because I
otherwise.
know of those games, but I'm going to be honest, I never really played the super early PC games so much.
I did. I played a bunch of text adventures at school, but I never saved them. I just beat them in one go. There was nothing else to do at school.
Like, I didn't play MUDs until MUDs had reached the peak of MUD technology. I never played the Zorks.
I couldn't save Mad Maze in Prodigy Online because my modem was only 2400 baud and it wasn't fast enough.
Mad Maze was great, though. I love Mad Maze.
I couldn't play it because I couldn't save my
Baba
game.
Yaga's Hut.
It was so slow, I couldn't save. So no matter how far I'd get, I basically would have had to beat all of Mad Maze in one go, which wasn't going to happen, obviously.
Yeah, I played it at a friend's house, so I never really cared that I had to start from the beginning every time, and I actually got pretty far once.
It also took about 2 minutes to load each screen.
See, that's something there, right? We always talk about how we have abandonware to rescue old games that have been lost. Mad Maze is pretty much lost forever.
Yeah.
There's no way to play that game.
Well, I don't know. I mean, people have got this BS Zelda working.
That's true.
So somewhere the code might exist.
Hey, BS Zelda people, when you're done with that, get working on Mad Maze from the original DOS Atari. DOS
Atari?
DOS Prodigy.
DOS Atari.
DOS Prodigy.
That was a good game.
Yeah, DOS Prodigy.
But, I mean, just think about how different games where you can save versus games where you can't are. And not talking high-score games, but just normal console games, like Mario 3 versus Mario World. I think that's the biggest. They're effectively the same game, except for the ability to backtrack and save your progress.
Yeah. What ends up happening, I think the major factor in having a game that saves is that if your game does not save, the beginning parts of the game will be played very, very frequently. Like the first world of Mario 3, I've played that so many times. But World 5 or World 6, actually, I've barely played World 6 in Mario 3. I've played it maybe 3 or 4 times in my life. Just because most of the times when I played Mario 3, I didn't get that far.
Yep.
Or I would warp past it to World 7 or 8.
Or Ghosts and Goblins. How many people in this world have actually seen any stage past the second one?
Yeah. If you can save your game and you only play the game once through, like, say, Final Fantasy VI, you see every part of the game pretty much once unless you die. So you don't see the beginning of Final Fantasy VI 10 times and the end once. You see every part once. And it's totally different.
Now, we talked about that a lot when we were talking about Mario World. So, to move on a little bit to something along the same lines, it seems like the scope of difficulty and the nature of the difficulty of a game is changed pretty much 180 degrees if you can save versus if you can't. And depending on the granularity or how often you can save or what cost there is to saving, it changes even more. Well, I guess you can't change more than 180 degrees without turning also to the right or to the left, but we're going non-Euclidean here. So think of this. Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest is a good example because I played through this game and beat it on the NES. I also played through this game and beat it when I was living in the mountains on an emulator. And the game was entirely different. It was so different that it was playing an entirely different game, despite the fact that it was actually the exact same game, just with an added ability to save my progress at any point, as opposed to, basically not being able to save aside from getting a password.
Well, I think using an emulator was a little different because you can also load at any time. So, like, if there's a hard bad guy, you'll save, try to beat the bad guy. If you die, you load.
Well, yeah, that's what I was getting at. But if you can save at any time, you can obviously load from any point at which you saved.
That's true.
So it wasn't really a distinction there.
But
my point was that playing Castlevania straight through is an incredibly difficult game. And let's say you get to a difficult part, and you try it and you die. Now you have to go through most of, if not all of the game again to get to that point after you've lost all your lives. So if a part is difficult, you don't get much time to practice it. In fact, the most difficult parts of the game give you the least opportunity to try them and practice them. So as a result, it becomes this monolithic, insurmountable challenge, like this mountain in the distance. Like in Hitler no Fukatsu, Bionic Commando, you know that jump at the end is coming up. You know it's coming. The whole game, you're waiting for it. You finally get there. You jump, you've got one shot, you fuck it up, it's over.
Yep.
Now, you can save your game, save my state every time there's a difficult part, and instead of having the cost of going back and playing through all the game again every time I fail, there is no cost to failure. I can play every individual issue, every individual jump infinitely until I do it perfectly.
Well, I think what it does is it shows you that we used to think games were harder, but maybe the tasks that the games required you to accomplish weren't actually more difficult. They just required you to do a whole bunch of stuff to get enough tries. Like, there'll be a jump. The jump itself isn't that hard, but it's a little bit hard. And you're not going to get that jump on the first try. And if you have to redo a whole level just to get another try at the jump, and if that level is maybe not the easiest walk in the park, just having to put in the time and the effort to go through that level sort of, wears on you and increases the difficulty of the jump when the jump on its own isn't really so difficult at all.
Mega Man did that to me a lot, where you're playing through Mega Man to get to the boss, the Robot Master. And along the way, if you're not good, I'm not good at Mega Man games, more damage you take, sure you can heal, but you might get to the boss without all your health, or in a non-optimal configuration because you're not perfect at the rest of the level. If you can't save your game, you've got to deal with that. So working on being super good at the whole level becomes much more imperative. Learning all the skills of avoiding each individual monster becomes a lot more critical.
Yeah.
But if you can save your state, if you get through it once, you save your state at the boss and just keep trying the boss over and over again.
Well, the thing is, in Mega Man, if you die at a boss, you reappear right before the boss.
Yeah, but even then, now you have to at least get through the level having one life left.
That's true.
Or each life you have left is one more try against the boss, especially if it's a hard boss.
Yeah, the other thing is you won't get back any of your weapons. So if you need a certain weapon to beat the boss and you don't have enough of it left because you had to use it in the level, then you could be in trouble. Because then you'll have to, you'll use the weapon on the boss. He won't be dead. You'll have to use the regular weapon or something.
It's like Adding the ability to save and load to a game that didn't have it completely alters the risk-reward ratio. There is now zero risk in trying risky things, so you're not as afraid. You lose that sense of fear or that sense of, if I don't survive this, if I don't make it out of this cave and use this tent and save my game, I'm not going to have Astos' fucking crown. I'm going to go to that marsh cave again.
Yep.
You know how many times that happened to me? The moment in my life when probably the most frustrating thing that's ever happened to me in my childhood playing Final Fantasy 1, I went in to the marsh cave at far too low a level. I killed those guys, those wizard, whatever they were, the mind flayer looking things. I got the crown.
You mean the mind flayers?
I fought my way out. I got to the exit. I had a tent. For whatever reason, I walked a few steps before I used my tent. I was attacked by 6 ghouls. I only had 2 party members left alive. They got first strike. They paralyzed my 2 party members. I sat there watching as they slowly killed the last 2 party members, and I lost everything that I had done.
Uh-huh.
I was a little kid. I almost cried.
Well,
but at the same time, you had such a fear of losing that progress that the game seemed so much more intense.
Well, I think there's a big difference also between games, and what their saving policy is. You know what I mean? The saving policy of a game is huge. And I used to think, why the hell don't they just make it so you can save whenever you want? They're just assholes. But really, if you ask a lot of the game designers, they chose their saving policy very carefully and very intentionally. They could have made Final Fantasy save whenever you wanted for free. They decided that you need to find a save spot or an inn or a town or a tent because that's the way they wanted the game to be. They had reasons.
Yeah, and usually those reasons are pretty good. I mean, some games don't do it well, but Final Fantasy games, actually, the distance between save points and the level of frustration and fear you'd have in trying to get to a save point versus the ease of actually saving your game and not becoming too frustrated was very well done. At least in the Final Fantasies I played.
The good ones that I played, yeah.
Oh, though 7 actually did something really, really clever with save spots that I'd never seen done before, and it totally got me.
I don't even remember.
This is not a spoiler, because statute of limitations on this early thing in Final Fantasy VII, other than the fact that Aerith dies, oh noes. Mm-hmm. So, Yuffie, you run into her, and when she pops up, like she's standing there, and like there's going to be an encounter. There's also a save spot in the corner of the screen. So you think, good, I get to save my game before I deal with whatever this encounter is. If you walk over there and try to save your game, while the save screen is up, it stays black for a little bit. You hear a noise, it comes back, Yuffie's gone, and you realize that she just stole all your money while you were busy saving your game. I was floored by that.
That's good stuff.
That was so great. That's like if you put a secret in one of those save rooms or one of those rooms with the missiles in Metroid.
Yeah, in Metroid, there usually wouldn't be secrets in rooms that were save spots, but I guess sometimes there were.
Yeah. Of course, also, I have a lot of nostalgia just jumping back to... Remember, all you young kids, there was a time when even if a game allowed you to save your progress, you couldn't just save your game. There wasn't any sort of battery or memory. The game would give you a password that you had to write down and keep and then remember when you wanted to play that game again.
Yeah, the passwords weren't really saving your game. It was just, there were only so many possible combinations of items you could have and only so many possible places in the game where someone would tell you the password. Like, in fact, Xanadu, you could only find out the password from talking to one of, these certain guys in towns. So there are only so many places you could possibly get a password. There are only so many combinations of items you could have, and nothing else really mattered in the game except what items you had and where you were. So there were only so many possible passwords that you could have, and the password was just, symbolic of what items you had and where you were.
Well, in fact, let's go into a little more detail on that, because I think a lot of gamers, especially people from our era, might not realize exactly what a password was. Scott alluded to it.
I think people know what a password is.
No, on a very basic level, what a password did in those games was turn your brain or your piece of paper into a very low capacity memory stick.
Yeah.
The password was basically just the code that said how to configure the game for you.
Yeah, if you opened up a game of Zelda 1 and you looked in the saves, the memory where the save game goes, and you took that memory and you looked at it and say hexadecimal format, A, B, C, D, E, F, and 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you looked at it, that would be a password, wouldn't it? If you just, instead of having a save spot in the memory where that number would be stored, if you just asked, the player to type in the number, then how is that any different?
Granted, some games had incredibly frustrating password mechanisms. For some reason, I often would mess up passwords in Metal Gear 1. It's just the way it made you put them in. If I recall correctly, it's been a while, I don't think you could backspace.
Huh.
So if you made a typo, you pretty much had to go through the whole process and try again.
Well, all the good passwords were games like Mega Man games or
Kid Icarus was pretty good, and Metroid.
Kid Icarus and Metroid were okay, but Mega Man games in particular had the best passwords because there was a grid, and all you had to do was put either insert dots in the grid. Like the grid would be 5 by 5, so 25 possible dots. You would put like a dot at A1, a
blue dot, a red dot.
No, well, that was
in Mega Man 3.
In Mega Man 3, there were blue dots and red dots. But in Mega Man...
And want to know a trick? A red dot was actually just a combination of 2 blue dots.
Ah.
I figured out that system, and I figured out where to put a combination of dots to give myself 9 energy tanks.
Ooh.
Because there was no checksumming in that Mega Man, or at least minimal checksumming. Mm-hmm. See, that's the reason why, despite the password just being a store of information for the game, you couldn't just type gibberish and get something weird. Because a lot of those characters, there'd be a checksum where it would know if a password was valid.
Uh-huh.
Or at least it would have a good idea if a password was valid. Kid Icarus, in some games, you could totally mess up by putting in... In fact, Kid Icarus and Metroid had weak checksumming. That's why there's so many passwords for Kid Icarus that have words in them, like Icarus fights Medusa Angel, or packing, or all those other ones. Because the checksum was so weak that you could very easily construct a password that you knew would pass the checksum. And you just look for interesting words and then see what those words gave you.
Yeah, nowadays, that we have actual save spots, unless you find some way to take that save game memory and modify it by loading it up on your computer in a hex editor.
Which was trivial in a lot of old PC games.
It was in old PC games, but not in modern console games. I can't take my Wii memory card, even though it's an SD card. I could load it up on the computer with a hex editor and try to edit it and maybe increase my Wii Sports score or something. But that's pretty difficult, and it's probably not going to happen. But if the memory space is only so large, I can actually afford to try all sorts of different stuff, figure out how to make my own save game, and I don't even need a computer to enter the save game because it's a password. I just have to type it in with my gamepad.
Now, also, don't forget that games like Zelda that had the battery save where you could just save your game, that was a big deal when that came out in the U.S.
That was a huge deal.
Back then, when games started, you could just save the game. I was a little bit dumbfounded by it. It was such an amazing idea, and I was so impressed by it. Little did I know that the batteries, if you don't keep playing the game, and even sometimes just randomly, only last about 5 years.
Pretty much everyone had their battery die, but if you open
My Zelda 2 battery didn't die.
Well, if you open up the cartridge, you can look at the battery, and it's a commonly available battery. You can replace those things. It's well known how to do. The internet will tell you. It won't tell us because we don't have internet, but the internet knows how to replace those batteries. It's not hard. Many people have done it, and the only thing I think they could have done better is if the battery was easily removable instead of having to open the cartridge, which is a little bit tricky.
This just gave me a crazy idea. Totally out of the blue. I'm sure someone might have done it. What if we just made an NES cartridge that had a USB coming out of the end, and you could just send data to an NES in real time and play games that way?
It's called a dev kit.
Yeah, well, what if I could make one or get a hold of one?
You mean an emulator?
Yeah, but it's not cool unless I'm playing it on an actual Nintendo. Now, a relatively recent development in save games has come about that has really obviated one of the biggest problems in save game ideas, was that if you want to have a limited possibility of saving games for whatever gameplay reasons, and you're a game developer, you have to balance that originally with letting someone save the game when their life is more important. I mean, how many times were you a kid and you were playing a game and then your mom says it's time to go eat dinner? And what are you going to do? You can't just leave Mario paused. Sometimes the NES would crash if you left it paused for too long.
Mm-hmm.
Or If it's a game like Final Fantasy, you have to finish fighting the antlion and then get out of that cave before you can save your game.
Mm-hmm.
And if your mom says you got to leave now, usually she'd just come over and unplug the SNES.
Well, another problem we've got is that we've got a lot of games that there is no saving no matter what because it's some real-time multiplayer game, but there are also a lot of turn-based multiplayer games, and we can save them, but loading them is kind of tricky. It's like, whoa, how do we load these things when there's multiple people playing, possibly on different computers in different places?
Well, the thing I'm going for is that this was solved so amazingly beautifully by the instant suspend or instant save that has been, or quick save, that has been slowly being put in many, many, many games. And the DS with its suspend mode does something similarly useful. Castlevania is a good example of this, the DS versions. Say you're playing, and you have to save your game in a save spot. You can't just save your game anywhere. You have to get to a save spot to save your game. But you can also do a quick save, where Breath of Fire 2 does this on the GBA too. You can save the game in this weird quick save spot. And the way it works is you save the game at any point, any time you can save it. But if you load that save game, it gets deleted. So you can't save your progress in the traditional sense of, if I fail, I could return to this point. So the game developer loses nothing from his risk-reward ratio calculations. He doesn't have to sacrifice the ability to make you sweat it. But yet, you can save the game if your house is on fire and you got to deal with that business.
Yeah, there are really two purposes to saving, and that is, if I'm going to stop playing and come back and continue playing later, that's one reason to save a game. The other reason to save a game is like, aha, I've just completed a difficult task. Click, now I never have to complete that difficult task again. It is accomplished, and now I will march forth to the next task, and I can always start from this point where those previous tasks are completed.
Yep.
And separating those two, I think, is actually a really fantastic idea, because when they weren't separated, things really kind of suck still.
Yeah, I never beat Wizards and Warriors 3 because I couldn't save my game, and it was too much hassle to play through that game.
Yep.
Plus, the furthest I ever got, our parents made us go eat dinner. So my brother and I took turns running over to the NES, unpausing it and pausing it. And then at one time, my brother ran out, and then I hear him yell, and I run over, and the game wouldn't unpause. It was horrible.
That's a bad one.
But yeah, just the idea that you should be able to stop playing a game at any moment if your life is more important. And by allowing people to do it with something like a quick save, there is absolutely zero cost to the developer in terms of his idea of how the game should work. So you can't lose anything. All you have to gain is everything.
Yeah, it's like you still have to make it from point A to point B without dying, or else the game will send you back to point A. However, if you don't want to do it all in one sitting, if you want to do it in 3 or 4 sittings, you go like half the way, you quick save, then you come back later, you start from where you quick saved, but if you die, you're going back to point A. You're not going back to this quick save spot. So you still have to accomplish the same goals, take the same risks, and achieve the same rewards and everything, but you can go back to your life. They separate those two things, and a game is much more awesome.
Now, lately, I'll finish with this. I've been playing Bionic Commando a lot again, kind of randomly. And the fact that the GBA version, that also has other games on it, doesn't add anything to the game at all. You can't save. There's no save stage. There's nothing. It's just an NES emulator. The fact that it's that way, and that I can't save my progress, has in the end greatly enhanced my enjoyment of Bionic Commando. Because by playing through the game in the old school way, I've gotten really, really, really good at that game now. And I can play the end parts of the game with ease. Where if I could have saved the game, I probably would have gotten to the end once, difficultly early on, saved it, and then always just come back to my fully decked out game and just played the levels I liked occasionally. I play the game more because I'm more restricted in how I play it. It's kind of weird.
Huh, yeah, I do kind of notice that. Like, if I had a game of Mario 3, or Mario World, here we go, Mario World, right? Let's say my goal is to beat Mario World 100%. I'm still working on it, even though I haven't had a lot of time lately. But when I do it, I'm going to have this game that's saved 100% Mario World. So why would I play that game? I can open it up and I can see, aha, look at this 100% completed game. And there's some levels that I like a lot, like maybe the last level.
The world with Kuribo Shu in it?
Yeah, the world with Kuribo Shu in Mario 3. I would play that a bunch of times. Like in Super Mario All-Stars, you can save your Mario 3 game.
Yep.
And maybe on the GBA version of Mario 3, you can also save it. I'm not sure, but I'm betting you can. So I would go back and play these levels I like, but I wouldn't go back and play hard, annoying levels. I wouldn't play the first level. A lot of the game just would never get replayed ever because I don't want to.
And it's almost one of those situations where filet mignon is great, but if you eat it every day, it starts to lose its luster. You start to get not sick of it necessarily because it's still great, but if you have the choice of eating the same thing every day and it's really good, or you have the choice of playing the 5 levels that you really, really, really like all the time, you'll get sick of those, and it's almost like by being forced to play all the levels, which are also good, you're forced to enjoy the game more than you would have if you just had the selective play.
Yeah, because, I mean, if there's a game you like, I'm sure there might be a game out there that has a bad part that you just don't like doing. But for the most part...
Like shooting Hitler's face off in the end of Bionic fucking Commando?
Yeah. But, for the most part, you're playing a video game. Most of the parts of the game are going to be fun in some way. So if you are given the option to play any part of the game you want at any time, because you've beaten the whole thing already, you're just going to play a few of the parts and not all of them.
So I guess it's kind of like with creativity in terms of sometimes your limitations can end up being your greatest assets. And the limitations of a game sometimes, not always. We're not saying that all games should be this way, but a game that's limited in those ways can often be a better game as a result of it, even if you don't see that right away.
Yeah, also, I just realized, you look at a game like Resident Evil 4, right, or Chrono Trigger, where, all right, you can save the game, and you can beat the game, but you're never in a situation where you can just go to any part of the game you want and play only the parts you want. When you beat it, it starts you over from the beginning in like a plus better mode where you can re-experience the whole game with your advanced skills, perhaps on a higher difficulty level, but with, your equipments from before. So you can experience the same game again from beginning to end, not just picking parts here and there like in a Mario world. And you can still save along the way, but you still have to go through it. And you're getting the same fun things that you had the first time, as if it was a game where you couldn't save. And you like Bionic Commando, where you had to play from the beginning every time. Or like the Zelda Second Quest.
All right, I guess we'll wrap this up. It's still weird not having internet. My teleprompter is still blank. It's kind of creepy. I can't just look at it. I have the comfort of that glow.
Hopefully this will be fixed tomorrow. Emily said she will not let the cable guy leave until the cable light comes on.
Which I imagine might end with him tied up in the closet, because I don't think they're going to fix it. I think this is going to be this horrible ordeal.
I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to do my damnedest to make sure it's repaired.
The internet will be back someday, but suffice to say, we've got a workaround, and Geeknights is going to keep going up. We're not going to stop because of this. So take that, all you lazy podcasters.
Yeah, I don't see anyone else driving 10 minutes down the... Well, not even 10 minutes down the road to upload their shows.
You can't upload 10 shows. This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.